What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to another video. Thanks for watching. I'm super pumped for this video because it's what this car has needed for the longest time. It's gonna be a longer video, but I promise you guys it's gonna be worth watching. So I've got everything laid out here in front of me that we're gonna be installing today. It's obviously a bunch of parts, so let me just quick go over this. This is all suspension that I got from bimmerworld.com. They're kind of a go-to BMW suspension or road race or track part website. They hooked it up on this. They've been awesome to work with so far. These are front M3 control arms with their front M3 control arm precision bearing kit. I'm really excited for this because I think it's going to really tighten up the front end suspension. Back here I've got their solid rear subframe mounts. I've got the rear camber bearings, just some MISC hardware for the front control arms. I've got trailing arm bearings, I've got their adjustable rear toe arms, all the rear M3 wishbones, and I've got other spring perch bushings there, rear shock mount bushings, and it's just going to refresh the whole suspension for the car, which is much needed. This thing's got 120 some thousand miles, and for the most part all the suspension is stock. You'll see I even have the stock front struts and springs, but that I'm going to be swapping out a different day. So it's going to be complete overhaul, and I also have these ECS tuning rear trailing arms. These are the only upgraded trailing arms I could find. They're really light, they seem really good quality, so I'm excited to just refresh everything suspension wise. Later on in the video I'm going to be doing the 15-inch brake conversion to fit a set of 15-inch wheels for drag racing. Obviously I know people have mixed opinions about that, but I've put together a concoction of parts here that I think will work, and then I'll share that all with you guys. But it's basically used calipers, rotors that should fit 15-inch wheels, pads, wheel bearings. This is not needed if you're a 335. This is just something I'm going to do at the same time since it's a 135, and if you have a 135 you know there's not a whole lot of wheel choices for us because the rear fenders just have a weird offset. So I'm doing a 3 series rear hub conversion, that way I can fit different wheels. I'll get to those in a minute, but everything we need to convert the hubs, the brakes, and the really exciting piece that a lot of you guys have been talking about is the LSD. I'm finally getting an LSD for the car. So this is from M Factory, it's the stock gear ratio. Really excited about this. I think with all these parts, the car is going to be completely transformed. I've got some modal gear oil for the diff, and I've got some PowerFlex bushings for it. These again are from Bimmerworld. So they really hooked it up on all the suspension bushings, the handling stuff. And I also have a Berger Motorsports diff brace here. This is a diff lockdown that kind of holds the diff in place to prevent wheel hop. All this stuff should really, try to prevent wheel hop. And last but not least, I have another set of Apex wheels. These are 17s. They're 17 by 9 ET40, I believe. I'll have to double check on that. With a 275 4017 Mickey Thompson ET Street. I ran these on some other wheels that you guys probably saw, but I'm excited to finally have matching wheels on the front and the back. So this should all go together smoothly. I'm gonna have all the links down in the description below for all this stuff. And last but not least, you might notice we're working in a different space today. I'm here with Joseph at Rosenbauer's Garage. He actually found me on YouTube, so you want to say what's up and what you work on out here?
Yeah, this is our shop here. We're out of Kiel. I primarily work on BMWs. That's kind of like my thing. So it's kind of an honor to have the guy that kind of got me started into it in my shop. So
yeah, he's gonna be helping us with that stuff today. I'll give a little spotlight on his car. I actually took the black interior out of my car. I'm sure you guys are gonna see that in some videos, and he got the black interior. He finally swapped out, what is it, the Dove Gray or
gross gray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he hit me up, and he's an awesome guy. He's got an awesome setup on his car. He's actually done a number of some of these suspension mods already. That's why when he said he'd be willing to help me out and go through this together, I am not a professional mechanic, so I'm definitely gonna appreciate his help. And I'll link his shop down in the description below as well. Like he said, he's in Kiel, Wisconsin. It's called Rosenbauer's Garage, and they do a lot of European stuff, so I'll have that all in the description. That was a lot of talking. Holy crap, let's just dive into the video. So right now we're just taking all the fluid out of all the brake lines. The car is up on the lift. Since we're doing this all at once, we're just kind of doing this the smart way. As you can see up in there, that's the broken axle. The only thing that you didn't see me go over in the beginning was the DSS axles I got. I kind of had this scheduled out and they're not here yet, so I'm just gonna put those in at home in a separate video. But this is the sheared stock axle here. The next step we gotta do is take off the exhaust. So we're working through that. I've got a custom exhaust here, and we just disconnected the midsection so we can drop the subframe. And we just took off the rear brace. Pretty straightforward stuff. Now we got to take off this exhaust shield, loosen the drive shaft, and go from there. So now we got a fancy drive shaft removal tool here. I'm going to try and loosen this out.
One more coming for you.
Yay! So we've already got started under the car. One of the first things we did was remove the back section of the exhaust. As you can see, it'll depend on what exhaust you have, but obviously you'll just have to remove some or all of it. And then we took down the exhaust heat shielding. There's a brace here. That was pretty straightforward. We unclipped the parking brake lines. We unbolted the calipers, let the fluid drain there. Now we're working on unhooking the brake lines from this spot so we can drop the subframe. There's a headlight leveling sensor there. We unplugged any little plugs or wiring. That's basically what we've done so far. Now we gotta loosen the lower shocks. Now we're just removing the parking brake cables. Look at that. So that just kind of holds them in?
Yeah. Slide into like a slot on the end of the cables.
So now we're removing the wheel speed sensors. We've got the parking brake cables disconnected on both sides. This is the wheel speed sensor off on this side already. The parking brake cables just connect in through there and are kind of punched out from that other side. But I believe after all this stuff, the subframe should be ready to come down. Now we just gotta unbolt this rear brace for the subframe here on each side. There's one on that side and then one over here. I think we'll be good. We're just starting to loosen up the 4 mounting points here, here, and over here. And then we'll start dropping this puppy down. Dang. And just like that. She's out. Now the fun begins. That's crazy. You know, it's really not difficult. It's just unclipping and disconnecting a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
So what are we doing now? Just disconnecting the sway bar?
Yeah, taking off, I took off the sway bar and then taking off the sway bar links.
Oh, I didn't even realize the sway bar's off. So one of the big things I'm excited for here is these solid aluminum subframe bushings from World. I think they custom make and machine these in-house, but we'll be replacing these factory rubber bushings, and apparently these just really tighten up the rear end. But that's going to be, I think, one of the major upgrades. And then as you can see, I've also got different M3 wishbones back here. So these will be replacing the wishbones. Yeah. That sad guy out of there. Garbage. Look at this guy. Muscle man. The last thing that's holding on is these toe arms here. The hardware and the bushings kind of seized up. So we're working through that on both sides.
Oh Christ, I went all the way up there.
I don't even know, you probably can't even see it under that ladder. Yeah. That was a long one. Alright, well, we got the toe arms off now. And just like that, we've got this subframe stripped out. The next step is going to be replacing all the bushings. So we've got the 4 subframe bushings, we've got the 3 diff bushings there, we've got the rear trailing arm bushing, and the camber arm bushing. So I'm going to get all these pressed out with Joe here, and I'll show you guys the upgraded World units that we're replacing everything with. I'm going to do that side by side, that way you can see the benefits of the upgraded bearings versus these stock rubber bushings all around. It's really going to make a world of a difference. And over here we've got all the parts that we took off the subframe. So starting with the open diff, the factory LSD that just sucks. I'm glad to finally get that thing out of here. Here are the lower spring arms. I'm replacing the lower shock mount and the inner and outer bearings there. The stock axles, which I don't think we're gonna put back in because I'm still waiting on DSS to send in those upgraded axles. I cannot wait to get those. They're gonna hold all the power in the world. It's gonna be awesome. So that's gonna be a separate video. And then we've got the wishbones and the trailing arms and all that, the tie rods. These rear trailing arms, I know that these have been damaged for a while. It might even been since I bought the car. I don't remember, but I noticed it, and I'm not sure if it was because of power or more likely someone probably just incorrectly strapped this to a trailer at some point. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but thankfully we've got the ECS tuning replacements for that. So Joe just showed me here that this rear diff bushing was in bad shape.
Look at that.
As you can see, if he pries on it up or down, I mean, the whole thing
the bottom is way worse. See that? Wow.
Yeah.
That's why you upgrade your differential bushings.
Yeah, thankfully I got those black power flex ones to throw in there, and I'm sure this had something to do with wheel hop and maybe axle braking, but like I said, a lot of power. on these and they're original, so it's definitely time to be replaced. We're gonna burn these suckers out now. Yay. So we've got all the old bushings next to the new ones now. These are the 4 subframe bushings. Obviously these are junk now, we had to burn them out. But the whole thing's rubber, and like Joe was saying, there's just a lot of room for them to move around, where these solid ones, it'll just be a direct connection. So I think these are gonna be awesome. These are the diff bushings, and you guys saw this bushing, how bad it was. Obviously it's a little beat up now, but that thing was torn up. And these black poly bushings should allow for a much tighter fit, and they won't have rubber spots like this one does to rip and tear. It's just a straight bushing. So these are the PowerFlex ones, and I got all this stuff again from Bimmer World. They've got bearings here. This is for the spring arm where it connects to the subframe. These are the bushings we took out. It's just a full rubber bushing, or at least this is a enclosed bearing with some metal in it, so it's gonna have less give. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it's like a Heim joint, I believe they call it.
And as you can see over here, we were just looking at the rear, what is it, camber arms or wishbones?
Yeah.
And Joe was talking how these are just stamped steel. The stock ones are just stamped steel, cheap steel, compared to the aluminum M3 ones. I don't know if the bushing material is any different.
I would imagine so.
Yeah.
I think if you go on like FCP, you can get an upgraded, or at least they claim, is like the M spec bushing style instead of the controller. But most people obviously just go with the whole replacing the entire control arm instead of just, you know, going back to stock or pressing bushing out of them.
The trailing arm bushings, the stock trailing arms, and again, those are being replaced with these solid bearing type of things, which should just allow for, again, a better connection and less rubber for it to deflect on and rip. So these again are those stock trailing arms, just junk. I'm excited to get these tight ones in there. So we got the whole hub spindle section here, and Joe is checking out the bushings that are in here, and
one here with a rip in it. If you look in there, you can see there's actually some corrosion inside of there, which is probably what caused this. If you listen, you can hear a little bit of knocking around.
Yeah, it's just metal on metal.
So all of that is shot. Good thing we're replacing it.
And that's the trailing arm? Bushing?
That is the lower control arm.
Oh yeah.
With the spring perch on it, so.
Yeah. I think I just have a new OEM bushing to go in there. That's about one of the only OEM bushings I'm getting, because I couldn't find an upgraded
These
one.
ones here from the factory are Heim joints, so they're actually just about as good as an aftermarket one, so they'll probably last just as long.
Sweet.
So
now we're gonna press these two out of there. Easy peasy.
just like that. Comes right out. Beautiful.
Let's see it.
Here she is. All of its worn out glory.
Yeah. Bunch of junk over here.
Garbage.
got what, the trailing arm and the spring arm.
Yep.
Bushing in there. Now we just got to get the wheel bearing in.
Yep. Yeah, the wheel bearing and then the heat shield and the hub.
So we just finished swapping everything over to one of the knuckles, one of the two knuckles, including the 3 series hub and wheel bearing and all that. And as you can see, the space between the bearing there, I can about fit my finger in there, and Joey's got the caliper there pressed from the hub to the bolt on the shield. And if he brings it over to this one, you can see there's a big gap. So I'll have to measure, and I can definitely fit more than my finger in this one compared to that gap. So what this is gonna do is bring the wheel closer to the inside of the car so I can fit more wheel or tire in the fender well before hitting the actual outer fender.
Roughly about 3/8 of an inch.
3/8 of an inch?
Yeah, give or take.
Huh.
So.
But that should make a big enough difference in the wheel options. Now I should be able to run any E90, E92 sized and offset wheels. So we're also doing the 15-inch brake conversion, and I'm gonna mount up some wheels and show you guys what I'm able to fit with this new setup. But as you can see, we've got all the new bearings in. So the trailing arm bearings, the spring perch bearings, and then obviously the new hub bearing, C-clip, all that stuff. So this knuckle's ready to go. We decided to keep the brake dust shield off on this one just to fit the 15-inch wheels, because these are meant for the bigger rotors and we're putting smaller rotors on.
Still have the backing plate for the parking brake recess though. So
yeah.
Make sure that's on there.
Yeah, we still use that. But otherwise, we're coming along pretty good. Now I just got to do everything to this one.
That actually turned out really good. I was really worried about this. Is the biggest part that I was worried about.
Yeah.
It's how it was gonna fit in there. I was wondering if you were gonna need the backing plate from the 3 Series or not. I didn't know if it was recessed or something, but wow.
Yeah, it looks like it fits really good.
Yeah.
These rotors are off a E91 328 XI, so I believe that's the wagon. I'll double check that, and I'm gonna have links for everything down in the description. But so far, this seems to all bolt together really nicely. Now we just gotta make sure that the calipers mount up good and all that, but looks good to me.
All I'm doing right now is just cleaning up the surface of this outside edge so I can weld it.
And we just got all the bushings, bearings, and mounts pressed into the subframe. So this is the trailing arm bearing, solid rear subframe bearing, the black poly 2 rear diff mounts, again the trailing arm subframe. This is a rear camber arm bearing, the Bimmer World unit that we had a tack weld on, solid subframe, same thing on this side, and then the last bigger poly diff bushing. So all the old stuff's out, and now we're gonna go ahead and work on attaching all the new arms and other stuff to it. Now we've got one side with all the pieces attached. We've got the upper control arms, wishbones, the lower trailing arm there, the adjustable tow arm, the rear spring perch, and obviously all that connected to the new hub. And man, it looks good. It's starting to come together. It's definitely been a long day so far, but we're almost there.
So one thing to note when you have the subframe out, these bolts right here can go in any direction that you put them. So one thing to note is the body of the car comes up right here, and this is where the subframe mounts. When you put all this hardware back together, make sure that you point it away from where the body would mount. So if this arm here ever goes bad, you don't have to drop the subframe to get the bolts out. And obviously another thing, and I'm sure everybody's heard this a million times, is when this is in the car, that is when you fully tighten these, all the hardware holding it to the hub or the spindle and everything. As when you take weight off the car, it can twist this, or when you set it back down, I should say, it can twist this and
so always
bushings right off the bat. So
tighten it with a load on it.
Yeah, definitely. So.
Don't just send it home when you're putting it together here.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna get cracking on the other side now. Both sides are assembled. We're just putting in the Apex stud kit and torquing them to spec. Dang. It's back in.
Been a long day.
Yeah. Such a weird sight seeing all this stuff being so much different. All right, we've been rushing through the second half of this install, but we just threw on the stuff that I was told would work for these cars, and I think it does. I'll go over this probably in a separate video, but I believe, don't quote me, I'll have this in the description, they are E91 328xi rotors, which is off basically a 2006 to 2011 wagon, and the calipers are off a E90 sedan 328xi. Everything bolted up perfectly, and the only test now is to see if the actual 15-inch wheel fits. So I bought these Ford Star F14s, and it's a 15 by 10, and money. Awesome. Fits perfectly. And there's, I mean, it's close. Here, let me see that light on this side.
The wheel's not tight, so.
Yeah. I mean, it's close, the caliper is, but I mean, it spins freely, so that's pretty much all that matters. I'll show you guys what this looks like once we actually get a tire on it and have it on the ground. But with the E90 hub conversion, it also looks like it'll fit into the fender, and I'm excited to try my new 17-inch Apex Arc 8s with the new hub conversion. But I'm just glad to see these brakes worked. Again, I'll do a separate video on that whole thing because I get questions all the time about it, and we're just gonna wrap this up. So now we're working with these front control arms, and I just wanted to mention this Bimmer World precision bearing kit should be really nice. What it does is it allows for a lot less deflection. This is the OEM M3 bushing here, and you can see the whole thing is rubber, so it could, you know, deflect and move around a little bit. Compared to this is a solid housing that has a smaller precision bearing. Just should tighten things up a little bit. It's definitely better than either of this is the stock arm with the stock bushing for the 135. And you can see even the design between that and the M3 is a bit better. So if you just get the arms and don't do this bearing upgrade, you'll still notice a difference, I think, but this just takes it to the next level. I've heard really good things about it, so I'm excited to kind of dive into corners, and I think it really will just tighten up all that in the front end. Here's the differences between the stock, the M3, and the stock in the M3. Alright, so we just buttoned everything up, including the E90 hub swap. So I gained some clearance here to run these new Apex wheels, and I'm just really hoping that they tuck in there. This is the first time we've lowered it on its own load here. God, the back is it still lifted by the lift a little?
No.
No? That's with lowering springs. Right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. So as you guys saw at the beginning of this video, I filmed this stuff months ago. It's February now. I just got around to taking all that footage and compiling it down into this, short video. I've had hours of footage, so for me to get it down to 30-40 minutes, I'm happy about. But I've got the car home, as you can see. I've driven all these parts, and I just realized I never concluded the video. So I want to take you guys under the car real quick and show you guys the final completed project. So let's start in the back of the vehicle. You'll notice right away the biggest improvement is probably this LSD. This is an M factory stock gear ratio LSD. This unit's been awesome so far. You'll see the BMS differential brace to prevent wheel hop, and you'll probably notice now I have axles in the car. These are those DSS axles I was waiting on. They showed up, I installed them. I've got a separate video coming on that. Moving over to the side here, you'll see the Bimmer World adjustable tow arm. This has been fantastic. We've got the ECS tuning rear trailing arms along with the upgraded bearings. We've got the lower spring arm bearing that has been upgraded. The upper spring arm bearing that's been upgraded. You'll see that's where we had to weld in the sleeve for the Bimmer World bearing there. I have the upgraded, well not upgraded, but replaced rear shock mount bushings. And then if we slide over here, you'll notice I've got the M3 rear control arms. So one there and one up there. And also on the diff, I've got the black PowerFlex bushings here, and up there. Those have been holding the diff in nice and tight. And it's hard to see these here, but I'll try to show you the Bimmer World solid rear subframe bushings. So these were those big circular bushings. We've got one there, can't see there, can kind of see there, and then again up in here. So that's been fantastic. You'll also notice the much smaller rotor and caliper. Again, that's for the 15-inch conversion. Everything went together perfectly, so I'm just going to do a dedicated video on that for all the nitty-gritty details. And you might notice I've got some aftermarket shocks. These are competition engineering shocks from a very old Mustang. They're actually three-way adjustable drag shocks. I'm not sure if I'd really recommend them because they are not plug and play. It took a lot of finesse to get these in there. Some people have had better luck, but they do work. And like we talked about, we've got the Eibach Pro Kit lowering springs front and back. It did settle since we dropped it down. Once I drove on it, it settled quite a bit, so we don't have that crazy wheel gap anymore, which is good. But overall, I don't think I'm missing anything, but every single bushing, bearing, every single piece of suspension has been replaced on this car, front and rear. And it just feels so good to have all brand new OEM replacement or upgraded aftermarket parts in the car. It had 120-some thousand miles on a lot of this stuff, and it's all brand new now. So we've got, bushings on the control arms. Everything feels great. So that's the rear. Let's move up to the front and I'll show you guys what that looks like. So moving up front here, I just realized I don't think I've shown you guys the front end of this car on the lift yet, because we've got some goodies coming down from the Doc Race single turbo kit. Shout out Doc Race single turbo. That kit has been fantastic and it really makes this car what it is. So you'll notice we've got both the M3 front control arms here, right here and here. And if you look up in here, this is that precision bearing kit on these lollipops. So they come with the OEM M3 bushing in there, but we put Bimmer World's precision bearing on the front of both of those. I've also got all new tie rods here in the front. So these are all crusty and old and rusted, so brand new there. That feels nice. Bushings are new here, and we did do new pads and rotors, but you're not really going to be able to see that. But they are brand new. So just the control arms up here that still got the stock sway bar, and I don't know if I really have the intention. For drag purposes, you could remove it. That might help our launch a little bit, but I don't think I plan on doing this because now this is just an all-around badass car. It's got all the parts to do all sorts of racing, autocross, big road tracks, drag, half mile. The only thing I got to get out of here yet are these stock shocks and struts. I think I'm going to go with a dedicated set of coilovers, so still narrowing down my options there. But that's probably the last piece of this puzzle, is going to be a nice set of coilovers. But hopefully that makes sense and you guys can see a lot of the parts that we replaced. Again, I'll have everything linked down in the description below. And if you have any questions about any of this stuff, please drop a comment. I'll be doing a separate video on my impressions of all this. This was more so the process of installing everything, and hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing that. It's one of the longest videos I've done, so I'd love to hear your comments on that. And now before I completely sign off, I wanted to just show you the wheel gap in the back here. It's not really bad at all. These are with the 18s. So if you remember, I have a set of 18s with Michelin Pilot Super Sports and a set of 17s with Mickey Thompson radials. So these are kind of my street tire or autocross or road track tire, and the 17s are when I want to hook up doing roll racing or drag racing. And I still have the 15-inch Ford Stars. I'm waiting to buy some tires for that. I think I'm going to go bias ply in the back with those and in the front. So I got to find a front wheel that's going to work, and then I'll be able to mount up those 15-inch wheels. But you'll see how tiny the rotor looks behind this 18-inch wheel. I did paint the calipers black just to kind of hide them. But that's what that looks like. It's settled pretty nice. I'll go around and show you the other side as well. The fitment's pretty good, and the 17s are damn close as well. Just a different type of profile of a tire. And just like that, that wraps up this video. Shout out to Bimmer World for supplying a bunch of these parts. Shout out to Rosenbauer's Garage in Kiel, Wisconsin. I've got their contact information down below along with the list of all the parts. Let me know what you thought. Seriously, this was a different video for me. A lot longer, a little bit different, so give me a comment below, and I would love a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. That's going to let me know if I should do more of these longer videos. And if you've stayed this long, I've been making 2020 moves. I know the channel and my Instagram have been a little quiet, but I've got an awesome surprise for you guys. And now that it's February, I'm ready to show you guys that. So stay tuned for the next video. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.